I asked some of the best players in the world to help me make the ultimate crystal PvP guide, and now I'm going to teach you everything that they taught me. Alright, let's start from the very beginning. What is crystal PvP? Crystal PvP is a fast-paced, high-skill combat style in Minecraft, where players use end crystals, anchors, and precise movements to destroy their opponents. It's not just about clicking fast, it's about thinking fast. You'll need to know how to pearl, ledge dash, use totems, place crystals quickly, and understand a diverse set of mechanics. This includes things like when to be aggressive, when to anchor, block positioning, when to disengage, and more. If you're not improving, chances are you're doing one of these. Number 1. Over-relying on mechanics. Game sense is typically always better than mechanics. While mechanics are still very important, winning mainly comes down to knowing how to use your mechanics to produce good decision making via game sense. Instead of relying on mechanics, you should be playing to strengths and making smart decisions. Game sense is overall more important, but good mechanics are still very helpful in allowing you to utilize your game sense to its fullest extent. Number 2. Bad decision making. This can consist of pearling into a player with no saturation, letting your ego take over like staying in a whole fight for too long, and playing off of emotion. All of which are extremely common problems players have and will often bottleneck your skill. Number 3. Mental. This is probably the biggest reason why people fall into a poor state of improvement and think that they're stuck at the same skill level and cannot improve. Trust me, you're not. In order to get better, you must be optimistic and take the time to step back and think about where you're doing wrong, and spend your practice efficiently, improving the issues you identify, rather than just spamming quick fights expecting to get better. Number 4. Bad keybinds. Bad binds that restrict strafe movement, your speed, or the flow of your mechanics are often an issue that people have that restricts their capabilities. You want to have keybinds that allow you to move freely and execute actions quickly, while also making sure that they're comfortable to use. You have to stop looking and trying to copy other players' keybinds. Every single set of binds is unique to a player, and in order to get the quote-unquote best binds, you have to find out the ones that work best for you. For example, even if you were to have Marlo's keybinds, it wouldn't make you anywhere close to her skill level. Her skill comes from her knowledge of the game and the mindset that she has towards improving that almost nobody else has. Other reasons a player may not be able to improve is due to them not being able to stay calm under pressure. Some people have poor nerve control, and this can cause people to struggle with aggressive or quick plays, such as toteming or being fast in fights, as well as people who cannot react fast in high-intensity situations. Not being able to accept a loss. Failure teaches you much faster than success. You'll figure out what strategies don't work, what your weaknesses are, and where to improve next. This is what you should ask yourself after you die. Why did I die? What could you improve on or be faster with? What did your opponent do that worked against you? And what could you do to prevent that from happening again? Another good way to speed up this process is to record your gameplay and analyze mistakes in order to improve your skills. Note, this is highly advanced and it takes a lot of time, but it is very good if you want to improve quickly. Flat fights and D-tapping. In order to dominate in flat fights, you need to know how to D-tap and how to pearl flash. Pearl flashing is extremely important in the current day meta, as it allows you to take no knockback and easily hit crystal your opponent. Here's some tips when it comes to flat fights. You do not want to be predictable. You have to try to change up your playstyle and utilize as many mechanics as possible in order to catch your opponent off guard and win the encounter. It's always okay to leave an encounter if you don't win. In order to pearl flash correctly, you must first pearl directly at the ground just before your opponent is about to hit you, then look up rapidly and perform a hit crystal or double tap. Flat fights take a lot of practice and time to get good at, so don't be too hard on yourself if you don't get it the first time. Now let's talk about whole fights. These are probably the hardest technique in the game to master. In order to dominate and win every single whole fight, you must have good mechanics and fast decision making skills, such as knowing how to properly execute certain mechanics, fast toteming, and knowing when to enter and exit a whole fight. In order to ledge dash, you have to place an anchor 3 to 4 blocks away from yourself. and 2 to 3 blocks away from your opponent for the best hole formation. Right after the anchor explodes, you want to pearl to the bottom, and you don't want to risk any sword hits, and go straight for the crystal. If your opponent takes out a shield, then you can proceed to either anchor behind them or use an axe to shield disable them. Number 2. Entering an existing hole. Only go in if you have a strong pearl angle into the back or into a ledge below. If not, then just rim anchor. Exiting a hole. When you're in a hole, you either fully leave or you fully fight back. Block up first, then pearl out. Don't panic. Failed pearls equal death. When exiting, you should focus on actually exiting. This means that you don't go in for a D-tap since you risk getting popped again. When you want to exit, you must take away any risk of losing more items than you already have. A meta is a 1x2 hole that you fight your opponent in. Here are some ways that you can win these 1v1s. Important note, you should almost always anchor spam your opponent if they have fire tick, as it's much more consistent than trying to go for a 50-50 D-tap. These strats allow you to get good positioning and start chaining your opponent. Number 1. Mining 1 block into the wall and anchoring. Number 2. Anchoring above your opponent. Number 3. Mining out 2 blocks to the side and then placing an anchor to the side of your opponent's feet. Important hole fight strategies. Number 1. Chaining. Chaining is when you line up multiple attacks and techniques to repeatedly pop your opponent and keep them toteming in their inventory for as long as possible. It always requires much more mechanical skill and effort to aggro compared to defending. This is because when you aggro, you have to make such quick decision making skills, and you have to be ready to counter your opponent with very fast attacks. I would personally recommend practicing aggro if you are trying to work on getting faster with your mechs and decision making skills, but for the love of sweet Jesus, please do not just mindlessly aggro. This leads to the worst of bad habits, and please keep your mind turned on when you're playing the game. Anchoring is much better than D-taps a lot of the time, because a lot of the time when you're under head hitters or up super close to your opponent, you want to prioritize anchor usage to its maximum. After the double blast brought change, it made anchors so OP, and the better you get with using them, the more rewarding they become. Remember, you want to try to anchor 3 to 4 blocks away from you and 1 to 3 blocks away from your opponent, and try to use terrain, blocks, like etc. to defend you and the anchors so that it damages your opponent and it doesn't damage you. Another reason why anchors are absolutely goated is because when you're fighting against double blast brought, you can chain people solely with well-timed placed anchors, allowing for insane combos. Blocking up. This is super important in both drain and regular hole fights. Whenever you're being crystaled up into a ledge, you want to prioritize toteming, but also try to block up in between retoteming. Doing this will allow you to survive, prevent yourself from being chained, and give you time to breathe to think about your next move, whether you want to counter strike, leave, or heal. Toteming, and yes, there's a proper way to totem. First of all, you want to switch to your hotbar totem, second, you want to open your inventory, and finally, you want to offhand another totem from your inventory. Doing it this way will allow you to always be holding a totem, and it will lower the risk of dying while you're retoteming. Double hand in. This is where you hold 2 totems that makes you unkillable, unless you get triple tapped, but this is likely never going to happen, so you don't have to worry about it. Here are some methods that I use that help me with double handing. You can either try to predict when you're about to be double popped or D-tapped by rapidly keybinding the moment your opponent hits you or that you think that you're about to be popped. And another method is just to always be double handing, especially on survival because you can get snaked at any moment. When you're actively chaining or attacking someone, pro players usually just switch to their hotbar totem, offhand it, so that they can keep aggroing your opponent. This strategy is actually really OP because it doesn't mean that they have to go to their inventory to retotem manually. And this can allow them to keep applying pressure on your opponent and allow you to retotem later. Let's talk about playstyles. These define how you fight and how you win. Aggressive playstyles. Aggressive playstyles are really good at putting pressure on your opponent. They require smart pearls and very strategic aggros. But bad aggression can equal throwing. You have to learn how to control your aggros. Shield is typically better for aggro as it gives you better chances at surviving ledge dashes, and it allows you to put more pressure on your opponent, because you can always fall back on your shield if you make a mistake. High tier 4s and low tier 3s that think that they have quote unquote aggressive playstyles are most likely just mindless aggroing dopamine addicted tree frogs that just want as much stimulation as humanly possible. They don't have any patience. In order to master being aggressive, you must actually know how to properly apply pressure and correctly aggro your opponent. Defensive playstyles. These contain a lot of ledge dashing, playing smart, and waiting for your opponent to make a mistake or aggro you. The axe and shield are really good tools for this playstyle. Passive aggressive playstyles. These are kind of a mix of both. You want to wait for big opportunities, and it does require a lot of patience. These are really good at punishing your opponent, but you also won't throw everything just on a sudden impulse. Here are some super important mods. Some mods that I highly recommend is Apple Skin mod. This shows your saturation so that you know when to gap or when to aggro. Crossbow hit indicator. This puts an icon on your crosshair every single time that you hit your opponent with an arrow. This is super helpful when knowing that you still flood your opponent or not. Low fire. This prevents fire from blocking your screen when you are PvPing. Low shield. This allows you to see much more of your screen while you are fighting. Status effect timer. This shows how much time your effects will last. Other mods that are unnecessary but I really like. Better ping display, mod menu, tilt break, join auto sprint, toggle chat, inventory scale, gamma utils, and day/night changer. What is Drain? Drain is where two players go all in, trying to completely burn each other's gear, totems, and mental. Drain fights are brutal and they test everything that you have. Here's how to master Drain fights. You want to stay at full saturation always, and double blast prot is the current meta as it allows you to take no knockback from crystals, being extremely overpowered. This has caused a lot of players to hate it. Knockback 2 may be good to use in high ping Drain fights against double blast prot due to the ability to hit players on ledges easily. However, Knockback 1 is more consistent and overall better, but I would experiment with both of them to see which one fits your playstyle the best. Shield is overall more consistent in Drain, but I wouldn't spam it blindly. You want to use it strategically. In whole fights, usually the player that enters the whole fight first and gets to the bottom usually ends up winning the encounter. You have to react smart and don't just spam all of your mechanics. You want to focus on controlling the area, movement and positioning are everything. This is how you can correctly use the shield in Drain fights or just in general. You do not want to overuse the shield, but you want to use it to get good positioning or to get out of a bad situation. If you're being ledge dashed, try to pearl out or block up as it's much more consistent. You want to shield behind corners or walls and be ready for your opponent to axe you. Blocking up is generally safer than relying only on a shield. If you're being ledge dashed, try to pearl away first, then shield if it's absolutely needed. How do you know when to aggro? Smart aggro wins fights and bad aggro loses them. You want to aggro when your opponent is low HP, if they mess up a mechanic such as a ledge dash, they miss a pearl, they're too close or unaware, and you have to strike when they're weak, but you don't want to force the aggro. Mindless aggression will always get you popped. You can also aggro your opponent when they're not paying attention, or if they're inventory, or even if they're just spamming slow fall. You can also aggro your opponent if they're not paying attention or if they're in their inventory. If your opponent is focusing too much on trying to slow fall, then you can pearl on them the moment they bring out the crossbow. Now that you know when to aggro, let's look at how you actually do a good aggro. In Drain, you only really want to take your own whole fights that you initiate. When you start a Drain whole fight, you want to try to anchor to get low ground before your opponent, so you can secure yourself with a winning position. Also, it is much easier to win a whole fight once you have low ground than compared to high ground. The Elytra is a great option for PvP, whether you're using it to escape a bad situation or to aggro players, and this is how to master it. The Elytra is best used to catch an opponent off guard in order to aggro them correctly. You want to fly around the opponent and attack them either when they don't have a good enough reaction time or if they won't see it coming. Now here's how to properly use the Elytra. You want to make quick rapid movements that'll catch your opponent off guard, and you do not want to be predictable. Here's some tips for using the Mace. The Mace is excellent for Crystal as it's super fast and outright broken. When you pair the Elytra and the Mace together, it becomes a dangerously broken combo, so you can easily get in and get out. In order to master the Mace, you must be quick with it as it's not for beginners. You're going to need fast mechanics and you have to do a lot of practicing with it. The only downside for the Mace in Drain fights is that slow falling instantly counters it. Here's some mindset tips. Number 1, you cannot get mad. Getting mad pushes you the farthest away from improvement, as it allows your emotions to take over and prevent you from learning and getting better, as you'll be relying on emotion and reacting on it, instead of actually accurately evaluating the situation and understanding what you have to do to get better. You have to keep a strong mindset, it's just the blocking. You don't want to tilt after a death, you want to take a break, or take a second to restore your mental before going into the next fight. Even if you're at 0 totems or down 0-3, you can still come back. You always want to have your eyes on your opponent, and you always want to try to play as smart as you possibly can. The most important thing is to always have fun though. If you're ever getting overly mad while playing, you're not going to improve. Want to improve? Here's how. In-game habits. You want to practice a lot, you want to play consistently, and you want to get a lot of sleep. Like, please don't stay up until like 4 AM grinding crystal PvP every single day. It is not good for you. You're probably not going to get better because you'll be too tired to actually think correctly. Practicing the Theobald bot or the zombie bot is amazing. If you're only practicing on these bots, and if you never actually fight any real players, then you're not going to be able to keep up with the meta, and you're not going to learn faster or better than actually fighting real players. Another way to get better is to watch pro players or streamers, as these players are usually pretty high tiered and pretty good at the game. When you play to genuinely improve instead of winning a duel, you will skyrocket in skill. Speed is a very good trait to have, but if you don't know how to use it, then you're just gonna get yourself killed by a competent opponent. You absolutely need to take things step by step. Improve by mastering a mechanic or strategy before moving on to the next. This way you don't get too overwhelmed easily, and it's much better for improvement. Something that helps me is by taking things in order. Number 1, identifying the issue. Number 2, understanding what steps you need to take to improve. Number 3, implementing it into your playstyle. Crystal PvP is intense, but once you understand the rhythm, it clicks. This guide is just the beginning. If you master these concepts, drain, playstyle, reaction timing, hold control, you'll start winning fights that you used to lose. Thank you all so much for 1K subs. This really means a lot to me. And if you want to see more content like this, then I would highly recommend subscribing.